welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, and London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada. We love you in Africa, the Big C tribe, but there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south. In the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful October the 7th, 2020. Round of Deportes. Bonjour, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, it was just another day in the universe of Donald Trump, who said, it was a blessing from God that he got COVID-19 and he wasn't going to give anybody else any stimulus money.
Right.
But free steroids was on him. He was giving America free steroids if they had COVID-19. So everybody get ready to pump some iron now. But I want to send a thank you out to our frontline healthcare workers, our nurses, our doctors, our first responders, for the marvelous job you do even without steroids.
Yeah, even without steroids. I've never heard it before. Thank God for these drugs. Big C is all fair and love and war. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers. Home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars also all around the world. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing from 3,000 miles away, and I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Spotify. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Apple TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. But you better have a smart TV, or you'll be sitting there looking at a still picture. Big C, I love thanking God, not for drugs like POTUS, but I love thanking God for our Veterans Crisis Hotline. They really are experienced helping veterans and their loved ones get help. Big C, why is that so important to you?
Well, it's amazing, as Donald Trump was addressing the issue of giving out free steroids today, he didn't address the issue of our military veteran problems, Charlton, that we have in this country, the mental and physical ailments that they go through, as well as COVID-19. And we lose some 2 dozen a day to suicide. He was there at Walter Reed Hospital in Washington, but yet he did not care about the veterans while he was there. He was too busy doing a little parade for his QAnon followers that were outside Walter Reed.
Yeah.
But as we think about losing that many veterans every day, Charlton, to suicide, plus the everyday American citizens that we also lose to suicide, the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number is one way that we try to stem the suicide rate in America, Charlton. We need it to become more of an American institution that everyone thinks along that way. Our great veterans have given so much for this country to be what it is today. Even though Donald Trump has been trying to destroy it, our veterans are still there every day. And we must do all that we can as Americans to help them through the troubled times that they go through mentally and financially and physically. And giving out the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number, Charlton, is just one way.
And Big C, I love doing our part, 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255, or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net, and you can get some help. Also, very happy to be affiliated with Valley Homes Weekly TV on Dish TV, DirecTV, AT&T, Uverse, TV53, home of the San Francisco Giants and the Say Hey Kid, and also the home run leader of all time, Barry Bonds. When you reach out to him, just tell him Big C sent you. Our goal is simple: recruit 10,000 real estate agents and brokers all over this country to put people back to work, just like McDonald's does it. Car dealerships are doing it. Sports teams are doing it too. Watch TV and real estate work for you. 800-772-8624. That's 800-772-8624. If you're looking for opportunities in real estate, go to bigcsports.pacwm.com. That's bigcsports.pacwm.com, and you can get some help. Also, very happy that our loans are underwritten for the most part by Quicken Loans, the #1 lender in the country. Big C, I've never thought I'd heard in my life. In fact, I know I haven't heard it. Even if I'm doing Ebonics, I never thought I heard or did you ever hear of anyone thanking God for drugs? Most people go to jail for drugs, not thanking God. That makes sense to you?
Well, many drug addicts, I'm going to believe, they think that's their savior. And so, they thank God for that next fix. And I see Donald Trump doing the same thing, thanking God that he can get some free steroids. And he's talking about he's going to pass out free steroids to all of America now.
Yeah, there's a movie. It reminded me of the movie New Jack City. And it had Wesley Snipes in the movie New Jack City. And he also went to jail for not paying taxes. But Donald Trump didn't pay taxes, but he just underreported. They did the same thing, but the black guy went to jail, the white guy got elected president of the United States. I want to make sure that America vote. Some people are still not registered to vote. You got to text the word vote, Big C, to 26797. Text the word vote to 26797. Tell all your friends that Big C in the NFL said vote. It is so important. Big C, I know sometimes people don't want to hear the same thing from the same parents all the time. Why is it important that people tell everybody they know to go out and vote? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, it's an inalienable right of Americans. So many people have fought and died for that, just like when we had a civil war. People fought and died for what they believed in. We had Americans fight and die for wanting other Americans to be able to vote. So don't let those deaths go in vain. Go out and execute that right to vote.
Yeah.
Do what those people fought and gave their lives for.
Amen. And could you imagine telling grandparents and parents that you don't believe in voting, and Dr. King was marching, John Lewis was marching, so many people were marching and trying to make life better for all of us, and we still have knuckleheads. They'll watch the Laker game last night versus the Miami Heat, but when I still talk to some of my young friends about voting, they say, man, I don't know if it matters or not. But they know how many points LeBron James scored last night. That's crazy. Before we get into some sports, Big C, I want to thank God. I've never heard a president thank God for drugs before. Donald Trump, and he did it on videotape. Why didn't he do it in front of the press, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, because they would call him out. This lie that he's perpetuating, and I still don't believe that he had COVID-19, Charlton. It's trying to get empathy towards the White House and towards him, saying that now he understands what Americans have gone through, the suffering and carnage that they have dealt with from COVID-19. That's a bunch of BS and malarkey on his behalf.
Yeah.
And all of what he does in trying to persuade Americans that he had COVID-19 and beat it, and 211,000 other Americans who lost their lives didn't have the strength that he had.
Yeah. And the amazing thing is, he knew that COVID was bad and didn't tell those 211,000 Americans. They didn't get the chance to thank God, Big C, because POTUS lied. Isn't that something? Tonight, I know is underway as we are starting our show, but Vice President, I want to get your thoughts. I love getting your thoughts. So many things you talk about come true, and people can Google what we say before things happen and see if we're accurate or not. That's called being prescient. Tonight, the Vice Presidential debate, Kamala Harris, the next Vice President of the United States versus current Vice President Mike Pence, who is the leader of COVID-19 under Donald Trump's staff. It's killed over 211,000 Americans that were not able to thank God the way POTUS did. And it's amazing how I'm going to predict that Kamala Harris will destroy Mike Pence in theory. And it's their only nationally televised debate, Big C. They're going to talk about the economy, how COVID's hurting Americans, and because Trump and Pence lied. Obamacare, Pence is still trying to take it away with Trump. They're trying to take away women's rights to choose, the Voting Rights Act. It's a lot bigger than the Lakers and the Heat, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you have to realize that Mike Pence is in his comfort zone tonight. This is what he's good at. He's a former radio and TV host. And most Americans don't realize Mike Pence was a spokesman for the tobacco industry for years in America.
Really?
So you think about how many millions of Americans lost their lives from lung cancer from the use of tobacco because Mike Pence was the spokesperson for that.
Yeah.
Now he's a spokesperson for COVID-19 in America. We've lost a couple 100,000 Americans, and he's ahead of that. He's ahead of that division of coronavirus, Charlton, with the White House. So when you talk about Mike Pence and being responsible for Americans' deaths, he's comfortable in talking about that and diverting from it, Charlton. He taught people to believe that cigarettes were okay for them.
Really?
For years, he was paid by the tobacco industry to lobby for them, and he did a damn good job at it. Think about how many people have been afflicted from nicotine and other carcinogenics from cigarettes that Mike Pence was an advocate of. So don't think that this is going to be easy for Kamala Harris. She is a prosecutor. He is used to asking people questions. Mike Pence is good at evading those scenarios, Charlton, because look at what he did in the tobacco industry for years. So I look at this as a draw tonight.
Isn't that something we saw? We just paid homage and thoughts and respect to the late Eddie Van Halen, who passed away from cancer, and many people attributed that to smoking cigarettes. I had no idea Mike Pence was a part of that. That's why I like you, Big C. Sometimes you tell me things that I don't know about, and I think I'm going to start taking you up on having some of that moonshine, as I thank God too, Big C. It's all fair in love and war. I want to get into some things in the NFL, and the NFL, when you think about it, it's all related to people just trying to play through some really bad stuff. And it's going to be brought up in the debate tonight how COVID-19 has put a lot of people out of work, Big C. But I got to get your thoughts on something, because oftentimes if you've ever been pressured into doing something, it's probably not a good feeling. But the NFL, this could be a huge problem. The Miami Dolphins have been granted permission from the governor of Florida, DeSantis, Big C, to allow full capacity at Hard Rock Stadium. The green light comes by way of Governor Ron DeSantis, Donald Trump's friend, who's a spokesperson, said that the team is now allowed to pack their stadium as part of a statewide removal of COVID-19 stadium restrictions. Big C, your thoughts?
And he lifted the restrictions on the state last week. So when you think about the teams that are down there, the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Miami Dolphins, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, all of these teams now, Charlton, are allowed to have full capacity in their stadium, no social distancing.
Wow.
We see this is on the rise as far as COVID-19 spiking in that state. And the governor is saying, go ahead on, because he wants to try to assure that the Super Bowl is still going to take place down there in February. So he's lifted all of these restrictions, not caring about the citizens of that state.
Well, isn't that ironic that comes out right as I think the Patriots and the Chiefs had to push their game off because of COVID-19. A couple of more players have come down with COVID also. What is it about Miami and even the whole state of Florida where, I guess because it's political, Big C, but people have to see through that. If you're a fan, why would you go and sit around 70,000 people, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, you have to be intelligent, not just a fan. You have to be intelligent. You have to take the science into consideration on this, Charlton. I mean, we've all been educated about what COVID-19 would do. But I also think that America is becoming numb to COVID-19 also because we hear about it every day. Just like when you hear about Donald Trump every day, you become numb to his actions. And I think that Americans have been so bombarded with COVID-19 is that a lot of them have just dropped their guard.
Really? Well, let me ask you, would you go to a game because they say, hey, you got media pass, it won't cost you anything, but because you work in media, you get in for free? Would you trust those white men telling you it's okay to go, even though almost all of Donald Trump's administration is sick? Big C, your thoughts?
Charlton, when I walk out in my yard, I look three ways. I look in front of me, I look to both sides to make sure that there's nobody else around.
Yeah, it's all fair level war. You can't see COVID the way you can see people. I want to touch on some more things that are happening in the world of NFL. I always want everyone to have the opportunity. But when I look at what happened with Bill O'Brien, sometimes you got to know your place in the world, and you got to know your place about who you're arguing with. NFL news, former coach, the erstwhile coach for the Houston Texans, Bill O'Brien, he got into a heated exchange with the Houston Texans star J.J. Watt, who's a good man, does a lot of good things down there in the state of Texas, Big C. But it's during the practice, and everybody argues in practice. But the incident, which also included defensive coordinator Anthony Weaver, it took place in the week leading up to the winless Texans' Week 3 loss to the Pittsburgh Steel Curtain Steelers, Big C, according to multiple reports. Now, the Texans, they're 0-4, and with their loss this past weekend to the Vikings, O'Brien was fired as head coach and general manager that day. It's not because of J.J. Watt, though, Big C. This is just the tip of the iceberg, in my opinion. Your thoughts?
Well, I think a lot of it included J.J. Watt. You talk about a three-time defensive player of the year in the NFL, a perennial all-pro, and he's white, okay?
Yeah.
You can get rid of some black guys, but when you get into it with the face of the franchise, the guy who has held you above float for a long time on the defensive side, J.J. Watt, that's a different territory. And so you didn't have the clout you thought you had with the McNair family when it came dealing with the prodigal son of Houston. And you spoke about all of what J.J. has meant to that community. He's meant more than Bill O'Brien. So it's easy to get rid of Bill O'Brien after the things he's done to dismantle this ball club, Charlton, and have it winless on the season.
And I got to ask you, too, because as a defensive guy, I know you told me many times there was arguments with coaches, but I don't know. I mean, the owner's going to take sides. The owner knows that he's already seen everything as far as what they're going to get. But could you imagine, this is the same coach that had them in the AFC Championship game last year before they lost to the defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. Big C, your thoughts?
Did he have them there, or did the players have them there, Charlton? You got to look at it. He's never won a championship. He's never made it to the Super Bowl. He's lost every year he's been in the playoffs. Yes, he's been in the playoffs 4 out of 6 years.
Yeah.
But it gets to a point of attrition where you lose the team. And he lost the team when he got into it with J.J. Watt, because I can guarantee you that more players on the team felt more for J.J. Watt than they did Bill O'Brien, especially after the Hopkins trade.
I was just going to ask you that question. It's like the musical chairs. They started taking away the chairs and stopped making the people who make you the money feel comfortable, and that has to always be the players. That's why I'm still flummoxed as to how John Gruden, that Mark Davis hasn't seen the light. I mean, you just lose year after year after year after year, and it takes players to have a mutiny before you get out. But it's all fair and love and war. I still believe in J.J. Watt. He does more than just play football down in Texas. Also, I want to go over to the East Coast, Big C. Now, I don't know if you're jinxing our quarterbacks from USC or what it is, but NFL news, the New York Jets quarterback Sam Darnold, he's out versus the Cardinals. Joe Flacco's going to start. Joe Flacco did win a Super Bowl with the Baltimore Ravens versus the 49ers. Now, Jets quarterback Sam Darnold will miss the Week 5 matchup against the Cardinals due to a quote-unquote shoulder injury, if that makes sense to you. Head coach Adam Gase, I don't know why he's still there, confirmed that today, that veteran quarterback Joe Flacco will start in place of Darnold. Are you buying that, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, I think if you go back 2 weeks ago, Charlton, I told you on the show that, the Jets should consider sitting Donald and save his career and have some trade value left in him.
Yeah.
And now with this wealth of injuries, it's the 3rd consecutive season, and he's going to miss time because of an injury. And when you think about a right shoulder injury on a quarterback, that's engine in his car. So, this move, it doesn't surprise me, Charlton. I felt that this move would be coming at some point, that Darnold would be removed from the starting lineup, because he hasn't grown any in his career with New York.
Well, I got to bring this up, though, because it's one thing to want to say that it's all about Sam Darnold. They lost a great defensive player that's playing in Seattle now, and sometimes maybe I don't know if he's really banged up. He's a lot like Donald Trump. He's going to say, thank God for the miracle drugs that give them in New York.
What you said, defensive player.
Yeah.
That Darnold played offense.
Yep, very well said, Big C. I want to also stay to the East Coast. NFL, the Washington Red Tails, they're making a change at quarterback, replacing also another struggling quarterback, Dwayne Haskins, out of Ohio State, with Kyle Allen. And the team announced Wednesday that Allen will start in Washington's Week 5 game against the Los Angeles Rams, with Alex Smith is going to be the backup. Could you imagine if Allen gets banged up, they bring in Alex Smith again, who nearly lost his life, from what I understand, from his injury? Big C, your thoughts?
And I think this is a horrific move by the organization, a real bad move. I mean, Dwayne Haskins has not played an NFL season, and yet you're benching him already for a quarterback who lost his last 6 starts last year in Carolina and got you fired in Carolina. That's the reason why you're coaching in Washington.
Yeah.
But, to not give Dwayne Haskins an opportunity to prove himself. Yes, he's 0-4 to start the season. Look how many other quarterbacks that are 0-4 that are not being benched.
Yeah.
If you look at him statistically, right now, he has the same statistics that Jared Goff had when he became a starter in Los Angeles. Jared Goff went 0-11 as a starter in Los Angeles when he took over. Think about Troy Aikman. He went 0-11 in his first year starting in Dallas. And Peyton Manning, he finished 3-13 on the season. So when you talk about quarterbacks not given enough rope, Charlton, to learn the game, this is a situation with Dwayne Haskins. He's not Ron Rivera's draft pick. Kyle Allen was a guy that he had in Carolina that cost him his job, and he would rather play with the guy that cost him his job than the guy that can develop potentially into a serviceable NFL quarterback. And then if he goes down, like you said, you're going to bring in a guy with one leg to play in an NFL game?
Yeah, that's bad. In fact, Hoskins did win their game over Philadelphia. They came back and beat the Eagles, so he does have a win under his belt. But he's a black quarterback, and they don't have as long of I guess, a learning curve, if that makes sense to you. Also, NFL news, Tennessee Titans, after 2 consecutive days with negative tests, Coach Mike Vrabel had been hopeful that the Titans could return to their facility Wednesday. I hear they're going down to some high school facility, but under NFL rules, that can no longer happen. And this does put Sunday's game against the Buffalo Bills in jeopardy. 2 tests Wednesday bring the total of Titans players and other staff members who've returned positive COVID-19 tests since September 24th. Big C, they've had 22 players since September 24th that have tested positive. Your thoughts?
And there's no end in sight. When you look at the state of Tennessee, it's one of the spiking states in the United States as far as COVID-19.
Yeah.
And this has the NFL teetering right now, Charlton, when you look at it in totality. Yes, the NFL has something that nobody else has. They own Sunday.
Yeah.
They own their stadium, so they don't have to share venues. So what this comes down to is how long will the NFL season be? Will we see a Super Bowl in the first week in February, or will it be in March or April? That's what we're looking at right now, because trust me, there are going to be more NFL games that are moved down the road where this season will extend 20 to 22 weeks.
Really? I mean, it's amazing, but you know they're going to get it in. They're going to find a way to get in all the games, Big C. I know they're going to do what they want to do because there's a lot of money. Also, NFL news, New England Patriots cornerback Stephon Gilmore. Man, I'm going to ask you a dumb question. Does it seem like all the guys they're saying are positive are African-American? Maybe I'm missing it, but it seems like everybody they're naming, 9 out of 10 are African-American. I don't know if that's the case or not, but it just seems odd if that makes sense to you. New England Patriots cornerback Stephon Gilmore tested positive for COVID-19, and league sources confirm that the team has canceled its Wednesday practice. The Patriots quarterback Cam Newton tested positive on Saturday, and in practice squad, defensive tackle Bill Murray had already been placed on the team's reserve COVID-19 list. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, think about how far that may go, Charlton. If you remember, after that Monday night game, Stephon Gilmore and Patrick Mahomes were hugged up at midfield, congratulating each other after the game. So if he had COVID-19, that meant that he was in facial contact of Patrick Mahomes and breathing in his face.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the NFL is going to have to take bigger protocols as far as protecting players once the game is over. They're going to have to cut down on the celebratory situations after the game. And greeting of players, Charlton, they got to go directly to their locker room.
Yeah, they will. So, I mean, Patrick Mahomes said he did something foolish by embracing somebody after the game. But you know what? I'm telling you, it doesn't stop there. The Oakland Raiders, they've also had 2 positive tests for COVID-19. This is the same team. A couple of players were out at some type of an event, and they got too close to other people. They were not honoring the protocol, and now you have 2 Oakland Raiders that test positive for COVID-19. Isn't it amazing that none of these players that had tested positive in the NBA back in the day, and then any of the players from baseball to even football, none of them have had access to the same medicine that Donald Trump has, who's thanking God he's thanking God as opposed to the doctors. Did he go to the church to get better, or did he go to the hospital when he thanked God? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, no, they do have access to the same medication, except when you're a professional athlete, you take steroids, you're going to face a several game suspension.
Yeah.
So they're going to avoid those situations, and they're not going to lie about it.
Yeah, I want to touch on the thing. I want to, if you don't mind, it's just my opinion. You can choose what you want to choose. I want to go to the 2020 NFL rookie rankings, and everybody has their own opinion. I'm going to throw out about 10 guys, and you just give me your thoughts on what you like. We'll do some before the pause and after the pause, but I want to start out with number 10, James Robinson, running back, Jacksonville Jaguars. Think about his stats, Big C. This good old boy's been doing his thing. 60 carries, 285 yards, 3 touchdowns, 14 receptions, 161 yards, and he was an undrafted free agent. Big C, your thoughts?
And you know, you got to sing a lot of praise for the young man down there in Jacksonville, Charlton, to have those type of statistics as a rookie and to be undrafted. One of those players that the NFL said was not worthy of getting a big signing bonus, but he's proven all the naysayers wrong. The trouble I get with that, Charlton, that you prove the naysayers wrong, but then the naysayers say we don't have to value a black running back in the NFL.
Yeah, I think that's very well said, Big C. Number 8, Tristan Wirfs, offensive tackle, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He has 4 starts. He was drafted 13th overall, Big C. Your thoughts?
Big kid out of Iowa, Charlton. I mean, solid offensive tackle, and you see what Tom Brady did last week, 379 yards passing, 5 touchdowns and 1 pick six. He'll make it 6 touchdowns, but he's delivered on the goods going as high as he did in the draft.
Hey, that's not fair. You can add a pick six for a touchdown, Big C. That's what they call padding the stats, Big C. It's not fair, but if you go to boys, get down your own way. Number 7, I think it's going to be amazing. C.D. Lamb, wide receiver, Dallas Cowboys, 21 receptions, 309 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he was 17th overall in the draft pick, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, he's been one of the huge benefactors of that weak defense that they have down there in Dallas, Charlton, because Dak Prescott has to throw the ball so often. He's had 2 100-yard games already as a rookie.
Yeah, it's kind of good. It's a serendipitous thing, Big C. He has a lot of yards because the defense is so bad, and they're always coming from behind. But he won't blame the defense. They probably love their defense. It's going to get him some Hall of Fame numbers if that keeps up, Big C. Number 6 on the list, I'm going to say defensive end, Chase Young. This Washington Football Red Tails team, Big C, his stats are 8 tackles, 2.5 sacks, 1 forced fumble, and he was drafted number 2 overall in the draft, Big C. Your thoughts?
And he has to fight for time in the rotation because if you look at the Washington Football Club, Charlton, they have 5 number 1 draft picks on that defensive line. And so he's in that rotation mode. You know, they got to get after people a little more than what they're doing and give their quarterback situation some help. Unfortunately, they're going to be changing quarterbacks this week.
Yeah, unfortunately, they will, Big C. And I'm going to bring up another guy that I was very high on when he was in college, Big C, and I'm even high on him now in the NFL. He just needs some more time to get seasoned. Number 5 on the list, Big C, Justin Herbert, quarterback out of the Oregon Ducks, plays for the Los Angeles Chargers, 931 passing yards, 72% pass completion rate, Big C, 5 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 47 rushing yards for a touchdown, and he was drafted number 6 overall, and I think he's going to be dynamic by next year, Big C. Your thoughts?
And he's done that in 3 games under pressure with no preseason. He is learning the NFL game. So he is going to be one of the budding stars of the league. When you look at his arm strength, basically able to make just about every throw in the league that you need to be able to make, has a lot more mobility than the average 6'6" quarterback, Charlton.
Yeah.
And once that offensive line matures and that running game gets solid with the Chargers, he'll be even better.
Yeah, he's going to get even better. Number 4, Mekhi Becton, offensive tackle, New York Jets. His stats, he's 94.6% pass blocking win rate, 7th among tackles. In 3 starts, he was drafted number 11 overall, Big C. Your thoughts?
So you're saying that the problem with the Jets offense was Sam Darnold because you got to get rookie offensive tackle doing his job.
He's doing
the quarterback can't get rid of the ball to the proper people.
Yeah. Hey, don't blame me because you can't get rid of the ball fast enough. The great Richard Pryor told somebody when he was playing flag football back in the day. Number 3, Antoine Winfield Jr. He's a safety, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He has 25 tackles, 2 sacks, 1 forced fumble, and he's drafted number 45 overall. 25 tackles, Big C. The good old boy was playing college last year. Your thoughts?
Todd Bowles has done a wonderful job with that Tampa Bay defense, Charlton. They were one of the best defenses in the top 5 in the second half of last season. And Antonio Winfield Jr., the chip off the old block. His dad was an all-pro cornerback with the Minnesota Vikings, and his son has picked up that same stride with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, that good old boy, when you were playing in college football last year, and now you're in the NFL, and you got that many tackles already, it's amazing. He's going to have a great season. I'm going to put number 2 on the list, Justin Jefferson, wide receiver, Minnesota Vikings, 16 receptions, 348 yards, only has a touchdown. He was drafted number 22 overall, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, his last 2 games seem to have caught his stride. Your cousin started throwing the ball more, Charlton. He's had back-to-back 100-yard games, just like C.D. Lamb. This is a kid who was on the national championship team last year at LSU. He was Joe Burrow's favorite target.
Yep.
And now your cousin seems to find a liking for him.
You like that? You like that, Soft Fair Level War? I'm going to put the top guy, and I'm a little bit biased, but the 2020 NFL rookie rankings from Big C Sports, my opinion, number 1, Joe Burrow, quarterback, Cincinnati Bengals. His stats, 1,121 passing yards, 66% pass completion rate, Big C, 6 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He has 75 rush yards and a touchdown, and he was drafted number 1 overall, and he's proven to be the real deal, Big C. Your thoughts?
And he's delivering on the goods when you look at him. As a rookie starter in the NFL, Charlton, and only have 2 losses, that's magnanimous when you look at it overall. And with a team that really had not much in the cupboard, the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow is delivering on the goods. He's only going to get better if he can stay healthy. That offensive line is going to have to protect him a little more because he has to throw the ball so often. But Joe Burrow is the real deal.
Yeah, he's the real deal. And what I think I really like about him, Big C, is this kid came into a franchise that was not used to winning at all. And now, even though they haven't improved much over last year, their attitude has changed. They're going to win some more games in Cincinnati, and I give it to him. I give him a lot of credit. He reminded me of the quarterback that helped LSU win the national championship last year. We're going to take what's called the Big C Pause, also known as the Big C Timeout. And we're going to thank God that we got the Big C Sports Show. We'll be back in just a moment. All right, we are back from the Big C Pause, also known as the Big C Timeout. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow us on Spotify, so many applications. And I really do thank God for the opportunity to have a sports show that's heard all over the world, all over the universe. Just say, play Big C Sports Podcast on your device, and it will come up. Big C, I thank God again, and I really mean it, unlike Trump on videotape, Big C, the 2020 Indianapolis Colts. This is going to go into some history, Big C. The defense, and I know you like defense, I think it really is the best in franchise history. We've seen dominant defenses before, but think about this Colts. Rarely, Big C, the franchise has not finished with the #1 defense in yards allowed since 1971, when it was called the Baltimore Colts, Big C, before they snuck out of town at midnight. Indianapolis has a chance to snap that streak this season. The Colts are allowing the fewest points per game at 14 points per game. Total yards per game, Big C, 236.3 yards per game. And pass yards per game, 159.3. Think about that. They rank a disappointing 4th in rush yards allowed at 77. But if they keep up that pace, Big C, that would set a team record for the fewest rushing yards allowed per game. Big C, your thoughts?
You know, this is when they had a great defensive line of John Ehrlichman, John Dutton, Johnny Cook. You know, they had some players that could play. You know, Mike Curtis was in the middle. And they could bring the heat back in those days, Charlton, and they seem to have revamped themselves. You know, when you think about the young players they have, Leonard and the kid they got from the 49ers, I believe, Armstead, the defensive tackle. They've really upgraded that defensive side of the ball. Everybody was skeptical about what Phillip Rivers was doing, but the Indianapolis Colts defense, is not for that first game loss to Jacksonville, Charlton, people be talking about them a lot greater than what they are right now.
So you're saying they're not going to be sneaking out of town the way they left Baltimore, Big C, your thoughts?
No, Charlton. I mean, everybody's excited about the Colts playing defense. This has always been one of the Achilles heels of that team. And we go back to when they had the great defense when they won the Super Bowl under Tony Dungy, Charlton.
Yeah.
And they seem to revamp that mentality.
Yeah, they do have that mentality, Big C. I want to ask you, though, when you think about how great their defense is, what's really wrong with the Dallas Cowboy defense? You think about Mike Nolan, he's the defensive coordinator. There was a time when he was a head coach for the Niners also. But there's something about this defense that is so bad. You have a record-setting quarterback, and you don't even have the chance to win 2 games yet, Big C. Your thoughts?
Mike Nolan, as you say, is the problem with the Cowboys defense. He's tied to Mike McCarthy somehow, some way. I don't know what kind of photographs he
Peanut
has
butter.
of him, but he's able to get this job. And you think about wherever Mike Nolan has gone, he has lost. In San Francisco, whether it's in Atlanta, Charlton, he has a loose streak about it. He does not know how to keep tenacity on that defensive side of the ball, and his teams have showed it that he is coached.
Yeah, it's amazing how oftentimes, and I'm an advocate for African Americans because I am one, and I want to make sure, we pray more than any other group in the universe. But then POTUS is responsible for 211,000 deaths, and he thanks God that he gets some drugs that most people can't get. Isn't that crazy? I mean, how do you even have the audacity to come out and ask people to vote for you as if they don't know that 211,000 people died because you lied?
What you need to do is ask your buddy Donald Trump to quote one verse from the Bible. If he's thanking God, just ask him to quote one verse from the Bible, okay? Watch him sit there with that dumbness all over his face.
When he finds that Jesus was black, he's going to burn that Bible, Big C. Revelation chapter 1, verses 14 to 15. The book of Daniel, chapter 7, verse 9. and 10-6 in Colossians. He's going to burn the Bible when he realizes that Christ was black. It's all fair love and war. I want to cover something. Yeah, go ahead.
Bible. He doesn't have a Bible.
He had one when he posed in front of that church by the White House, but we know he probably bought it at Costco. Yes, someone gave it to him. It's all fair love and war. NFL, Russell Wilson. He may lead the NFL in touchdowns, and Prescott might do it in passing yards. But there's a kid from Fireball, California that grew up throwing cantaloupe. His name is Josh Allen. He leads the league by a wide margin in cognitive dissonance, Big C, in a short list of Most Valuable Player Award. Think about this. You might laugh, but you think about the Most Valuable Player Award contenders. I think he separated himself from the pack as the NFL season rounds in his first turn. Allen has 1,326 passing yards, 15 combined passing and rushing touchdowns. The Bills are off to a 4-0 mark. And you think about it, Big C, he's a galloping runner. He's not someone that has lightning fast speed, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you think about the last two unanimous MVPs in the NFL and what they look like, Dalton. This is one of the things that the NFL wants to get off of the media. They need to have a white savior, that white knight. Josh Allen has performed thus far in the first 4 games of the season up to that level. But he still has not outperformed Russell Wilson. He hasn't outperformed Dak Prescott. Yes, his Bills are 4-0, and he's right there in that good spot at number 3. But there's a guy that I would put at number 4 right now that nobody can discount at all.
Who's that?
His name is Patrick Mahomes. I mean, what Mr. Mahomes is doing in Kansas City, he hasn't lost in 12 weeks, Charlton. 12 games he has not lost.
Yeah.
And then my buddy up there, discount double check in Green Bay.
Yeah.
You can't push him off the cliff. Because we got right now, Charlton, in the NFL, we have 5 guys vying for the MVP of the NFL, and either one of them can win it.
Yeah, either one can win it. I would love to see Russell Wilson if he keeps doing his thing. They've never given him an MVP award. He has a Super Bowl championship, went to 2 of them, and had he learned to hand off more, he would have had 2 Super Bowl championships, if that makes sense to you. Still got a stomach ache when Seattle threw the ball on the 1-yard line with beast mode in the backfield. But it's all fair and love and war. There's a lot of burgers out there. I want to tell people, go out and make sure you get the Big C burger. It's made with exotic meats. It's ooh-yeah good. It really is a tasty burger. When you're sitting out watching games, make sure you enjoy the Big C burger. You can get it at participating restaurants. Big C, I want to go, speaking of the Big C burger, the Big C, in my opinion, means it can stand for champion, it can stand for Christ, it can stand for everything. It can stand for cash. But the Big C, when I think about the NFL, I think that there's a lot of great players that might be MVP. But when it goes to the NBA, I think there's only one. You might laugh at me. I know Giannis got his thing, but LeBron James will be the Finals MVP. I know people say Anthony Davis is doing his thing. He's doing his thing. But LeBron James is averaging 28, 12, and 9. Without LeBron, the Lakers could not win. I know people say it's about AD. It's not about AD, in my opinion, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, without LeBron, the Los Angeles Lakers would be the New Orleans Pelicans of Los Angeles. That's what they would be.
Yeah.
Look at AD's career. He's done nothing other than teaming up with LeBron to make him a perennial superstar. LeBron has not taken a back seat. LeBron is the true leader of the Lakers. And if the Lakers go ahead on and close out the Heat, he will be the Finals MVP.
Yeah.
When you look at that stat line, just one assist shy of averaging a triple-double in the Finals, Charlton, this is unparalleled territory that LeBron played in.
Yeah.
LeBron has done this for 17 years in the NBA, played at that level, and no one else has ascended beyond him. He's the greatest player of his era.
Yeah, he's the greatest player of his era. But Big C, I'm telling you, he might be the greatest of all time. I'm not saying that just to be saying it, but I know there's a lot of great players when you talk about who's the best NBA player of all time. I know you like the guy that got 11 championships, but he didn't dominate the way LeBron. LeBron got a championship with the Cleveland Cavaliers. LeBron got a championship with the Miami Heat, multiple, and LeBron may just get a championship with the LA Lakers. So when LeBron's not winning championships, he's losing championships. There are a lot of great players that can't say they were there every year, especially with different franchises. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, this is LeBron's 10th trip to the finals, Charlton. He's 3-6 thus far in the finals until they close this out against the Miami Heat, and they will have his title. But, LeBron, you can compare him to any era player. I mean, he's the only player in NBA history to make 16 all-NBA teams.
Yeah.
Think about that. 16 all-NBA teams LeBron has made. That meant that you've been a stellar throughout your career.
And when he came into the league, he came from running around in the high school gyms. I remember when he played at, I think it was St. Vincent, St. Mary in Akron, Ohio. They played Mater Dei out of Santa Ana in Southern California. So they were flying all over the country as a high school team. So he didn't get the 1 or 2 years tutelage in college like a lot of other good players. That's why I still think he's amazing. Also in the NBA, this is the first NBA Finals that LeBron James has played in that his opposing team is not loaded with NBA superstars and Hall of Famers or potential future Hall of Famers. I think this is his easiest path to a championship, and I'm not knocking Miami, but I'm just saying, Big C, your thoughts.
So Miami is a team on the young and on the learn, Charlton. They weren't supposed to be here, and they got here. And so that's a lesson to anybody. You just play until the final whistle. But, the Lakers, this is their given title this year.
Yeah, and I wish them all the best. I'm still thinking Miami has a shooter's chance. I thought the Lakers would take this series down to best of 6. But it seems like somebody woke up LeBron James and he realizes when you play down inside, you're going to have more success. And don't worry about shooting threes. You're going to get the basket and the foul. That's your three-point play. And one more side note, I know Rajon Rondo, Big C. I was saying earlier in the year he's not a good shooter, and he doesn't have to be. But he really plays defense. He has 7 rebounds. He's arguably the shortest man on the floor. How's he get 7 rebounds, Big C? Your thoughts? So the one more thing, and I apologize for the static in the phone line, Big C. Rajon Rondo had 7 rebounds. He's the shortest guy on the floor, but I think he plays defense it's a textbook the way he's on defense and offense. He's a menace. He's all over the place, and I love the way he plays. But how does he get 7 rebounds? He had more rebounds than Davis, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, and that's where he does not mind playing defense. He does not mind attacking the boards. But you also got to realize Russell Westbrook averaged a triple-double at guard.
Yeah, that's true. But Russell Westbrook's not playing in this year's NBA Finals. It's all fair love and war. I got to think about something with the bubble and Donald Trump thanking God that he killed over 210,000 people because he lied. What if those doctors at the hospital that gave Donald Trump all those drugs, what if they lied and said, no, you don't need drugs, you'll be fine. It'll just go away by Easter. What if he lied? Now he has the audacity to say maybe it was a blessing from God that 210,000 Americans have died because he lied. What if his doctors lied to him? The NBA bubble, Big C, when you think about the real MVP of the NBA season, I think the bubble hasn't burst. And other than the guy getting the chicken wings, he had to go out and get his chicken wings, Lou Williams down in Atlanta. But think about this. The finish line is in sight, maybe Friday or Sunday. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver, he acknowledged that he had doubts, even if this was possible. So many players have the same doubts. We're dealing with racial injustice. We have a bigot for a president who's trying to stir up some type of racial strife. We have a president letting people starve. And players have families, and they have a lot on their mind. You think about what's happening across this country. COVID-19 positivity rates were skyrocketing in Florida. When the NBA moved to Walt Disney World, the league calls it a campus, everybody else calls it a bubble. 3 months ago, it was a stretch to think that it was only a matter of time before some trouble started. Look at the NFL, they've had some trouble, college football's had trouble, but it never happened in the bubble. So the NBA got the games in, they kept the virus out, and the players managed to find balance between what they felt was great in the basketball obligations and their social and home responsibilities. I give the NBA a slam dunk. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this is what shows when black people put their mind together how they can make things happen. When you think about the director of the NFLPA is a black woman. You think about 70% of the league are black men. When they put their minds and thoughts together, Charlton, they can make things happen. They can move a nation, a country, to show people how things can be done mentally, physically, and medically. And so if you take the leadership of what the black people did in the bubble, in Miami, in the NBA, America, if they follow suit, would be a much better place today.
Well, it's interesting you said that because I want to talk about some WNBA. But I was talking to a good friend of mine today from St. Louis, Missouri, very politically inclined, works with law enforcement and works with a lot of social issues. And then we were talking about African Americans because it's so important. The United States of America, I know we're focused on sports, maybe oftentimes to our demise. United States of America, there's 435 congressional districts. There's 100 senators. There's 9 Supreme Court justices, 8 for now, depending on what happens with what the shenanigans that POTUS is trying to pull off. But who really runs the United States of America? It's not the president. He's a spokesperson. It's not the vice president. It's not the Speaker of the House. I'm asking our media brethren to speak up. There's a book called As a Man Thinketh by Alan James. And I know we want to watch the game, Big C, but people have to really get out and vote. And not just for the president, but for the down ballots also. It really shapes up what's going to happen with our country in the next 40 to 50 years, Big C. Your thoughts?
Charlton, I've been telling you that for months, that you guys keep focusing on the president. It's not the president. It's those 98 white senators that you have to focus on that control America. They're the ones who allow Donald Trump to be who he is. He's not in control. It's the Senate. They're the ones who can advocate whether you get a stimulus package. They could have impeached him. They didn't do that. And Donald Trump is a distraction from what the Senate is doing. And one of these days, America will wake up and find that out.
Yeah, it's so important that people know this from other than who's going the game. United States congressional appointments in the process by which seats in the United States House of Representatives distributed among the 50 states according to the most recent decimal census mandated by the United States Constitution. Each state is appropriated a number of seats which approximately corresponds to a share of the aggregate population in the 50 states. However, every state is constitutionally guaranteed at least one seat. I just want people to Google this. The number of voting seats in the House of Representatives has been 435 since 1913, and they capped that number by the Reappointment Act of 1929, except for a temporary stay between 1959 and 1962. It increased to 437 when Alaska and Hawaii were admitted into the Union. We have the Electoral College, which will determine the President of the United States. I hope that people, especially in our swing states, will do that, will get out and vote, and don't ever think that your vote doesn't count, because it always does. And Big C, I want to ask you one more thing, because we both worked in TV and in radio, and I know our media brethren are muzzled, just like you muzzle that dog sometime when it's barking too much and the neighbors don't like the loud noises coming from behind your gate. What advice would you give to our black brethren to ask the white owners who sign their paychecks to allow them to at least talk about our congressional districts and how important the Constitution is to our young black voting base? Big C, your thoughts?
Charlton, that's the basis of the contracts that they sign. They will not talk politics with you. When you sign on to a sports show, you sign on to talk about that sport. When you talk about a news cycle, there's still limited things that you can talk about in a news broadcast, Charlton. So these are the words and the bounding part of the contracts, because these companies are technically public entities that are run by the government. This is what you have to understand when you see these people and you get a little tense about them not speaking up. When you talk about the broadcast network, those are government entities in the United States, so they can't take a political side either way.
Well, talking about the Constitution, not a political side, and this is where I disagree with you. Almost every NBA owner, would you believe, they're opening up their arenas so that people can vote. They're not taking a political side. They're not seeing who to vote for, but they're trying to get people to be encouraged in voting. Almost every NBA and NFL commercial is telling people, make sure you get registered to vote. There's from Pete Carroll to almost every athlete that I've seen saying get out and vote. So they are allowing the athletes to do it.
You have to understand that's paid for political advertising, which no broadcast network can turn down. You cannot turn down any paid political broadcasting. If you take one broadcast commercial, you cannot turn down any others. You have to accept everybody else who wants to buy on your outlet. But what I'm trying to explain to you, when you look at the national broadcast companies, these are actually public entities. They cannot take political sides, and they cannot have their employees taking a political side. They can address political issues, but they cannot take a political stance on air.
I disagree with you, Big C. I just watched the NBA Finals. Black Lives Matter is all over the floor.
And I know how to work.
Okay, so what's the Black Lives Matter on the NBA courts in the NFL fields for if they can't take a political side?
They don't own the team. You're talking about two separate entities, okay? You're talking about the broadcast company versus who they have that they're playing on air. That broadcast company is not taking the political stance, all right? They can't go one way or another because they have federal money that pays their way. And so they can't take that. What an owner of a franchise does, that's totally different. You're broadcasting that company. So whatever advertisement they have in that stadium, whether it's Coors Light, whether it's Toyota, whatever it is, that's part of that arena. It's not part of the station. The station is not advocating those things.
Well, that's interesting because it's on those station airways. I think that's a great area right there.
And the contract of what broadcasting can and cannot do. I've been privy to that. And so you have to look at that to understand what broadcasting networks can and cannot do. A cable outlet is different. But if you deal with ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox on a local level, they cannot inject any political insight because once they do, that broadcaster won't be on the air anymore.
Well, who's the brother Harry Edwards that I've seen many times on the mothership? They'll bring him in.
Does he work for that station? No. They bring him in as a spokesperson so that that person who is doing the broadcast that he's working on does not get in trouble and jeopardizing his job. So they bring in Harry Edwards as a spokesperson to speak on the subject, but the person who's interviewing him does not use Harry Edwards' stance.
Okay, so it's a slippery slope. It's a gray area. So
it's not great. Harry is not an employee of the station. Whenever you see an interview on television, they go out to interview independent people who are not an employee of the station. You don't see them sitting down with co-workers, blasting back and forth. Look at the co-anchors. They never go through those situations. They bring in somebody who leaves them autonomy to the injection that person is going to put in on the airways.
So when Bob Costa said a couple of months ago, we won't be seeing any more of this Black Lives Matter stuff. We just want to see sports because people are tired of it. Are you saying that
Tell me what networks you see Bob Costa's on full time other than cable television.
Well, he's been bounced around as a guest, but
on cable television only. He's on MLB Network. Bob Costas does not work for the networks any longer.
Well, why not? Why are they afraid to bring on someone like a Harry Edwards or a Bob Costas to speak? Because they are bringing on guys like Harry Edwards. Even Don Lemon on CNN, he'll bring on athletes. Draymond Green was on CNN not long ago.
You have to understand the FCC regulations and what you just spoke about, Don Lemon, and you talk about these sports. These are cable networks. These are not broadcast networks. There's a difference between cable and broadcast. Broadcast networks, you can get that on an antenna. Cable, you cannot. So you're paying subscription. This is the reason why they can use profanity on cable and not on broadcast television.
Yeah, well, I wish they would do more of it. Bring on a guest and get our young African American minds and white people too involved in the vote and making sure they understand what politicians they're endorsing or not endorsing. I want to
look at those things, Charlton.
Yeah.
They're only concerned about the revenue that they're going to create. They're going to make that same amount of money regardless of who's in the White House, and that's what you have to understand. They're sitting there worrying about lining their pockets. They're not worried about who's in the Oval Office because they're going to make more and more money each year, and the more controversial things are, it benefits television.
Yeah, well, very well said. Everybody has their own flavor of Kool-Aid. I like red wine. You like moonshine. I would love them to bring in more, just bring in some other experts to talk to our young people about why the vote's so important. WNBA, Big C. Yeah, go ahead.
Parents are for.
Yeah, well, not every parent's capable. That's like saying a kid should go to the parent instead of going to the doctor. Donald Trump, he went to a doctor when he got sick. He didn't go to somebody's parents.
You're saying that no parent is capable of sitting down having a logical communication with their children. I think that's a void statement that you can make right there, because if you've been with your children their entire life, then you should have enough influence on them to be able to sit down and have a decent conversation with them.
Not every parent's equipped to talk to their kids about finances. Not every parent's equipped to talk to their kids about medical situations. And not every parent's equipped to talk to their kids about politics. It's not all the same. That's why we have college, Big C. If we didn't have a college, we could say, well, just listen to your parents. They know more than a college. No, that's why they have higher education.
That people don't prepare their children to get to any of those stages. What you're saying is these children raise themselves as feral children and had to figure it out on their own because their parents knew nothing.
No, I'm saying you go to college because it teaches what your parents can't teach you. And if you could think that parenting is more important than college, then everybody drop out and let your parents teach you. That's just my opinion.
18, you're able to vote. And generally, most kids are not in college at that time. So if they haven't learned about voting by the time they turn 18, it's not going to kick in when they turn to 22.
Well, there still does not hurt to get expert advice. That's why they have courts, to get expert advice, not just from the parents. But everybody has an opinion. I do want to make sure I pay homage to the WNBA champions, Sue Bird and them good old girls, Breanna Stewart and the Seattle Storm. Absolutely dominated the Las Vegas Aces. Could you imagine being dominated in Las Vegas, Big C? They dominated the Las Vegas Aces to win their fourth WNBA championship. Stewart, who averaged 25.7 points, 7.8 rebounds, 4 assists, was the WNBA Finals MVP. And Bird also added an incredible string of championships to the 92-59 victory. It was the largest margin in the WNBA Finals history. And Bird has been a member of all 4 Storm's WNBA title teams. The championship brought congratulations from all over the sports world, Black Lives Matters, and women having the right to vote too. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you think about Sue Bird and how accomplished a player that she's been in her career. She has 4 WNBA titles. She has an Olympic gold medal. She has a world gold medal. She has 4 titles at UConn. She has 5 championships over in Russia. So she's most likely the most decorated female basketball player of all time when you talk about Sue Bird. Breanna Stewart, she won the Finals MVP, her second, and she would have won it, 3 years in a row if she hadn't had an Achilles injury last year.
Yeah.
So when you think about the dominance of ladies basketball, Charlton, and how spectacular they are, they just don't get the media rapport that the men do. But Seattle has a champion once again.
Yeah, congratulations to the Seattle. I mean, the Storm is amazing. It's always storming in Seattle, too. Big C, I want to close out on Major League Baseball. Some Major League Baseball scores: the Braves 9 and the Marlins 5. The Braves lead the series 1-0. Astros 5, the A's 2. Astros lead 2-0. The Rays 7. The Yankees lost. That series is tied at 1, and the Yankees pitching backfired on them. And then the LA Dodgers 5 and the San Diego Padres 1, and the Dodgers lead that series 1-0. Baseball is a little bit different now. I know they have. It's just awkward. You're not even seeing teams play in their own stadiums. I guess they're doing the best they can, but no one has gotten the bubble right the way the NBA has. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the NBA and the NHL were the only teams that were able to isolate. That's the difference. You have a lot more personnel in MLB and twice as many in the NFL. When you talk about isolating, it's almost impossible. And to be able to put all of those teams in one city and players, you don't have enough facilities that will house these NFL players. But they're doing the best that they can. But like I said, the one thing that the NFL does is that it owns Sunday, and it also owns their own stadium. So they can extend the NFL season as long as they want to extend it, because they can play in any element.
Yeah. You know how you and I talk so much about going back and forth. We don't have to always agree, but that's what you learn when you can see the other person's point of view from both sides. I really, just like what we talked about with the NFL, whether it's NBA, Big C, WNBA, even high school football has been on pause for, I think, 37 states are still playing high school football. They've had an outbreak in COVID-19 cases in the state of Utah, which is where tonight's the convention is, the debate, vice presidential debate, Kamala Harris and Mike Pence. It's amazing that Mike Pence, who I guess is the COVID-19 czar for the White House, he did not want a partition to separate him from Kamala Harris. They know POTUS lied and won't tell people when he tested positive for COVID-19, but would you imagine there's over 1,600 kids that are in quarantine in the state of Utah because of COVID. And then Vice President Mike Pence did not even want to have a partition between he and Kamala Harris. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, he has stated that the White House is on top of COVID-19, just like he stated when he was a lobbyist for the tobacco industry, that tobacco did not kill Americans.
Wow.
Over 1 million Americans, several million Americans lost their lives from lung cancer from tobacco, Charleston. So Mike Pence has had a career of lying. And he's lied about COVID-19. 211,000 Americans have lost their lives. Over 7 million Americans infected. Donald Trump says he's going to get everybody free steroids so that they can beat COVID-19.
Wow.
But Mike Pence does not have a plan of attack for COVID-19. He has none whatsoever. He will skate around it. He will be very good. He'll be just like he was in the bubble in the NHL up there in ice on Edmonton and Toronto, skating around the issues. He will talk about the economics of this country. He'll talk about how Trump closed down America. He might have closed down America, but he has not helped America health-wise. That's the issue they keep stating. You can keep saying that you closed down China for the China virus, but you have not told us what your action is to stem the tide of this COVID-19 pandemic in America. Don't blame China anymore. Tell us what you're going to do to solve this problem in America.
Big C, it can now be called the Trump virus because Donald Trump lied to the American people. China has no obligation to tell the American people anything. Donald Trump, when he had the same choice that China had to make about telling the American people, Donald Trump lied. He lied to the American people. They can't say anything else about China because the buck has to stop with him, or maybe it doesn't. Big C, back in the day, there's a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, I'm looking for more expanded drug testing in high school, college, and professional sports, Dalton, because the president is giving out free steroids, and so we're going to see some expansive growth among the physicality of these athletes. But once again, I want to thank our frontline healthcare workers, our nurses, our doctors, our first responders for the marvelous job you do. And the drugs that you administer to people are the ones that are needed.
Yes, the ones that are needed. And I want to close out by saying everyone has to see this commercial. It's a commercial about a man with a dog. The man had peanut butter on his mouth, and the dog was licking him and licking him and licking him and licking him. I'm going to say don't lick anybody that's been licking on dogs every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide. You can follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, that's never, ever an excuse for racism or domestic violence. If you know any man, woman, or child going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and ask for help, because no man, woman, or child should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.